So we will start now recording. A warm welcome from Crete. This is the fourth lecture of this online training course on innovation and entrepreneurship. I am very happy to welcome you again on our weekly meeting. This online training course is organized by EURECA-PRO and the Technical University of Crete with the valuable contribution of all the institutions participating in the EURECA-PRO Alliance and consists of 14 lectures. Today, we decided to make the session a little bit more interactive. So after the end of the talk, a short anonymous quiz will appear on your screen. After you indicate your answers, we will share with you the statistics of the quiz. Until then, please don't forget to keep your microphone muted during the lecture. After the quiz, time will be dedicated to answer all of your questions, and hopefully we could initiate a fruitful discussion. Please feel free to use the raise hand button after the end of the talk and post your question live, or if you don't feel comfortable with that, post your question in the chat. You are invited to leave your camera on during the whole lecture and the Q&A session. Last week, Professor Aneta Alexander from Silesian University of Technology gave us an insight in the main elements of the internal environment of a company and how it determines its development opportunities and responsiveness to emerging external factors. This week, I am pleased to welcome on board Mr. Andre Uhlmann from the Technical University of Freiberg. Mr. Uhlmann is a site manager and founder advisor of the SAXEED unit in the University of Freiberg. SAXEED is a startup network for 4 universities in Southwest Saxony. Today's talk deals with the development and assessment of business ideas. Mr. Uhlmann, I believe we are now ready to hear more about SAXEED and how you deal with the successful development of business ideas in Saxony.
Okay, hello to everybody. Thank you very much for the warm welcome and the introduction to SAXEED and to my person. Yeah, my name is Andre Uhlmann. I'm the head of SAXEED at the Technical University of Freiberg. SAXEED is the startup network, and we support students and scientific workers by creating their own business idea and founding their own startup. In that case, we support our startup way from creating the idea to evaluating the idea to developing the business model and to found the startup and to notice all the formal parts of founding a company. So today I would like to talk about 2 questions. How can we create working business ideas? And the second question is, how can we evaluate working business ideas? And before we start with the topic, I would like to do a little exercise with you. I used to Google a lot of checklists, and there are many checklists online how to found a company, how to create a startup. And I would like to ask you, do you already have Google a checklist how to start a company, how to found a startup? Just use the chat function and I can see your answers. Do you already have Google there? a checklist founding a company? Yes or no would be fine for me in the chat. Okay. Okay. Different opinions. So when we look at all the informations we get from the internet, how to create a startup, we often get these points I have written down here. A lot of checklist goes around the legal regulations and formalities of founding a startup. A lot of checklists we have for writing a business plan, for developing the business model, for finding customers, for search a market analysis, for finding investors, or for ask for the customer feedbacks, or for developing the product. And I have another question for you. Which part or which step would you think is the first to create a working business idea? What do you think? You can use the chat function if you want to. Customers, okay. Very important point. Product, find customer for your product. Capital, business plan, my main idea. Okay. Yeah, as we can see, a lot of business plan I can write, I can read here. Okay, customer. Yeah, thank you very much. So when we look at the entrepreneurship books, we often find the classic approach. We need to develop a product. We need to plan in an intensive way to avoid mistakes. Then we have a very important point to write the business plan. And every one of you who already wrote a business plan knows that it takes a lot of time to create or to write a working business plan. And then in the fourth part, we often see the capital, how we can acquire capital. And in a perfect case, we have at the end of creating a startup, the exit stage where we can sell our startup. That is the classic approach. And when we use the classic approach, what could go wrong? We focus on the product, but there is one main goal or one main question we often forget. Where is the customer? Because when we focus on the product, we often use the focus of the customer. And the next very important part is founding really that straightforward process, or is it more a straight line, or is it more not really? Customers don't care about our solution. They care about their problems. And that is a very, very important point when we deal with creating a business idea. We students which have who have a business idea, they often talk a lot about their product, their service, or their new process. So we see there is a solution, but we can destroy all the business idea with one simple question. What problem of the customer is solved? Who is the customer? That are the main questions we ask. And so we see the problem solution is one main part of the problem solution fit, but it's not the most important part, because we need, on the other hand, the customer problem. And that is one first step for us. We need to think about the problem of the customer. And after we have enough information of the problem of the customer, then we can think about the solution. And only when we have a fit between the problem solution on the one side and the customer problem on the other side, then we have the opportunity to create working business ideas. And the structure is very simple. We have the problem of the customer on the one side. The second step, we need to think about the previous problem solution. How does the customer solve the problem right now? And then our work is it to think about a solution which is better than the previous problem solution. And I can explain it on a simple example. I forgot my apple, but just imagine I have here an apple, and I have the problem to cut the apple into small pieces. How can I solve that problem? What do you think? What would you use to solve the problem cutting the apple? Perfect, a knife. Simple solution. So I take a knife, cut the apple down into small pieces. The problem is solved. But there are some parts at the current problem solution that I don't like, because it takes a lot of time to cut the apple down with the knife. There is the core of the apple is very large. I have to wash my hands. I cut my fingers with a knife. All parts I don't like. So a smart person invented the so-called apple cutter. It's a simple part. Here you have the apple. You can take the apple cutter on the top of the apple, put it down, and the apple is cut down into small pieces in one working step. And all the parts I don't like with the previous problem solution, the knife, aren't there anymore. So I have a problem solution that is better than the previous problem solution. And that simple example should show us how the problem solution works and how important the problem solution is for developing business ideas. And our opinion as an entrepreneur is to transfer this simple example to also technical products. And when we look at the questions how we can develop products, we often use the so-called lean startup approach. The starting point of the lean startup approach is the idea. I think that is clear. But in the next step, our opinion is not to develop the product by our own, in our own room, without no feedback. Instead of that, we need to develop a minimum viable product. The first product, an MVP. And with that MVP, we can go to a small group of customers and show our product, our customers, and ask, okay, is your problem solved with that product? And we can get a lot of informations about our product from the customers, the customer feedback. And with that feedback, we can learn for the next loop of a product development. And we go that loop again and again and again until we have a working product which is which satisfies the customer, or which solves the problem at the customer. That is very important. And I can explain the lean startup approach on a very simple example. The example of developing a car. And I have another question for you. What do you think? What is the main problem a car solves for the customer? What do you think? Just use the chat function. Time, effort. Yeah, perfect. Moving from A to B without walking. That is actually, for me, the main goal why I have a car. And when we look at the problem and do a very solution-oriented way, we have a car in front of our eyes. And all of you, maybe not all of you, but maybe some of you know how to develop a car. We have some tires, we have a chassis, we have a roof, we have doors, and we have design elements. And when we think about our main problem, moving from A to B without walking, we are only able in the last step of product development to solve our problem. And when we think about our main problem, moving from A to B without walking, more in a lean startup way, I have to ask the customer, okay, what is your problem? And the customer says, I want to go from A to B without walking. That's my problem. And I say, okay, as a lean startup founder, okay, here you have a skateboard, because a skateboard is very fast to create. Here you have a skateboard. Your problem is solved. And now I have to ask, just remember all the loops of product development. Here you have to ask, okay, are you satisfied? Is your problem solved? And the customer says, okay, yeah, I can go from A to B without walking with the skateboard, but it's very hard to control. Then I say, okay, no problem. Here you have a handlebar, and you have a scooter as the next product. And I ask again the customer, is your problem now solved? And the customer says, yeah, I can move from A to B without walking and control it very well, but I guess it's a little too slow. And I say, okay, no problem. Here you have a bicycle, you have pedals on it. And I ask the customer again, is your problem now solved? And the customer says, yeah, I can move from A to B without walking. I can control it very well, and I'm fast, but I'm not fast enough. Okay, no problem. Here you have an engine on it, and here you see an engine, a scooter with an engine. And I ask the customer again, is your problem now solved? And he says, or she says, yeah, I can move from A to B. I can control it very well, and I'm fast. But when it rains, I get wet. No problem, dear customer. I can bring a roof over over your head. And here you see the car at the end of the product development. And as you see, the result is the same. We have on both sides a car, but the way to the car is total different. It's total different. And also here, we need to transfer that simple example also to technical products. And when we use the lean startup approach, we are avoid that kind of paradoxon. Here you see on the left side the products which are the founders of a startup often dream of. A rocket with a lot of functions, a lot of features, a lot of stickers, a cool design, which is launched into the market. We see there is a smaller rocket with less functions, with less product features, not so cool design. And when we look at the right side, we see what the customer wishes for. And the customer don't need a rocket with a lot of features. It just needed a bike with a ramp. And when we use the lean startup approach, we can save a lot of time, a lot of money, and develop products for the needs of the customers. That is very, very important. It's a totally different way. So let's come back to the main topic of today's lecture. How can we create working business ideas? And when we look at the process of making or founding a startup, the first goal is to create a working business idea. Here we can use design thinking, which we would like to talk about later. The next step is to create a functional business model. Here you can use the business model canvas. I think the business model canvas will be part in the later stage of the lectures. And in the last step, we need a suitable financing until the break-even point. But today, we would like to start with creating a working business idea. And here we use design thinking. What is design thinking? Design thinking is based on the so-called human-centered design. Here we have 3 areas which are working perfectly together. First of all, we need to look at the proof of value. Everything we do, every product, every service, every new process we create as a startup needs a proof of value. So when you think about the problem solution fit, we talk about how can the problem of the customer better solved by our product, and that is the proof of value. The proof of value could be that the customer could save some time. We can offer a higher quality. The customer could save some money. The customer has a special design, a special image. All that part could be a value for the customer, and that is the first important point of the so-called human-centered design. The next step is the feasibility, the proof of concept. So we need to think about how can we create our business idea. For example, it would be perfect to move from A to B, from Germany to the United States in 1 second, maybe with a totally new technology. But to develop a new technology, we need to think about the feasibility, and we need to think how many costs will be possible to create that new technology. And in the third part, we need to think about the profitability. The development of new technical products costs a lot of money, and that's why we need to think about, in a very early stage, how can we make some turnover with the new product, and thus the income or the turnover is enough to make a fit to the costs of product development. That is another very important point of the human-centered design. But in the middle of the human-centered design, as the title already says, is the human being. And when we use design thinking to create business ideas, we first think about the definition of design thinking. What is design thinking? And we define design thinking as a structured approach to solving complex problems. Design thinking produce real-world solutions, or solutions that works in a real world, because we use the customer feedback to test our products. Design thinking involves users and shareholders by the problem and the solution process. And design thinking is a continuous learning process. Within the process, we learn and in every single step of the development of the idea. And when we move on to the mindset of design thinking, that is very important to avoid focusing on the solution, because we are used to focus on the solution. When a customer comes to us and says a lot of their problems, we often have a concrete problem solution in our mind. Just think about the example with the car. When I talked to you and said, okay, I have the problem moving from A to B and I don't want to work. What would your solution be? And most of you think, okay, why not using a car? Because we are used to think in solution. But when we use design thinking to create business ideas, we need to avoid that kind of solution thinking, because we need to focus on the problem of the customer. That is very important. And here you see the 3 elements of design thinking. Usually we do design thinking workshops over 2 days. And that's why I can give you only a short overview of design thinking. But the most important part of design thinking is, as you can see here at the top of the building, is the mindset. The mindset is that we need to be open-minded for new ideas, that we are avoiding the typical solution thinking, that we are able to look with the customer's eyes, and that we are able to build on the ideas of others. That is a very important part of design thinking, the mindset. And then when we move on, we have here the process. The process of design thinking includes 6 steps: the problem area and the solution area. And to every single step or part of design thinking, we have a lot of tools, which is the basis of the building of the design thinking. Each tool belongs to a single step of the design thinking process and can be used to create ideas. And in the middle of the design thinking process to develop ideas, we have the design thinking process. And as you can see here, the design thinking process is separated in 2 parts. We have on the left side the problem space, and we have on the right side the solution space. And of course, we start with the problem space, because to create working business ideas, we have to focus on the customer and the problem of the customer. That's why we start with the problem space. And here we start with the first step, to understand the customer. At the beginning of design thinking, we often start with a challenge, with a topic. For example, how can we create the process of online delivery totally new? That could be a design challenge with which we can start the design thinking process. So in that case, at the beginning of design thinking, everything is somehow unclear. We have many opinions regarding the problems. We have a lot of user groups. We have a lot of needs. We don't know at that part how to focus on the right idea, the right starting point. But actually, that is not a problem. That is totally normal when we start with design thinking, because we have a complex world. We don't have simple solutions. And that's why we need to think about the context. And that's why we start with the understand part, and to understand the customer, to collect the information we already have about our design challenge. And then we move on to talk about our customer, to observe, to get more information about the customer, to prove our approaches. Is it right? Is it not right? Is it totally other way? And then when we have enough information about the customer, we make a point of view. We put all our information about the customer together and make one point of view. And then when we have enough information about the customer, we can move on to the solution space, to the solution area. And the part where we leave the problem space and move on to the solution space, we call the grown zone. And we often say Steve Jobs was a very important person of the grown zone. He perfectly knew when he has enough information about the customer to create a new product. And that is actually a very difficult step at design thinking, because we often don't know whether we have enough information about the customer or not. And but we need to move on to the solution space. But actually that is difficult, but not that large problem, because we will know it when we don't have enough information about the customers. When we test our product, it's not very successful, we have to go back to the beginning of design thinking. So when we look at the solution space, we start with the ideate area where we create ideas. As you can see here, we create ideas actually on a later time. First, we need some information, and then we create the idea. Then we try to make a prototype of our idea, and then we test the idea. And that is a very important step, because if the test is successful, we have a product that solves the needs of the customer. And when the test is not successful, we have to go back to the beginning of the design thinking process. And as you can see here, at the end of design thinking, in a perfect way, we have a concrete solution for the user problem. And the solution is already identified, and that's why we need to go further. For example, with the business model canvas, we need to get more information about their potential. And for us, or why do we do the design thinking to create business ideas? Because we need to get some information about the customer. And you can see here a picture from Instagram. And the question to you is, what do you see here? Very easy question, I think. I guess I can answer it for you. You can see some cookies, and our opinion, our way to deal with that picture as a design thinking founder is to look at the surrounding of the picture, of the context of creating the cookies. And as you can see here in the next picture, there are a lot of problems with which the creator of the cookies has to deal with. we have a child that is crying, we have a lot of chaos around, we have a lot of rubbish laying everywhere, and that takes part or influences the process of creating the cookies. And behind the pictures, to look behind the problems of the customers, so that we are able to create a perfect product to solve the problems of the customer. And another tool which you can use to create ideas is a tool which belongs to the problem area of design thinking. It's the so-called user journey. And the typical user journey you can see here. We have at the top of the flip chart, we have the several process steps of let's take the example. I would like to buy a new shirt, and how does the process looks like to buy a new shirt? For example, in the shopping mall, maybe also on the internet, but let's take the example of the shopping mall. And here you see on the post-its at the top of the flip chart all the single steps of buying a new shirt. I have to go to the shopping mall. I have to open the door. I have to move in. I have to talk to the working staff. I have to look at the right size. All that are single steps of the user journey to buy a new shirt. And here on the left side of the flip chart, you see my feelings. Do I have a good feeling or do I have a worse feeling? And then you can move on from process step to next process step and just write down my feeling. Is this a good feeling? Is this a bad feeling? And for example, I have to open the door and I have to touch the door, and I don't feel very comfortable by touching the door, and my feelings are very bad. Then I move on, and the working staff is very friendly and says hello and smile, and oh, perfect. My feelings are getting better, and my mood is getting better. So it goes up. And when we see the user journey, each process step where my feelings are very bad, that are the post-its, the red post-its at the top, at the bottom, sorry, at the bottom of the flip chart, that are opportunities to make the process better, to create new business ideas. And that's why you can use the user journey to make the whole process visible. So when we move on to the ideation process, to the process to create the concrete ideas, in design thinking, it's very important to make clear that we don't have the perfect idea at the beginning of our process, because it's first of all very important to create a lot of ideas, quantity, not quality, a lot of ideas. And step by step, we select the working ideas by the customer feedback. We need to talk to the customer, and then we can select step by step the ideas until we have the perfect working idea for us, which solves the problem of the customer. That is often not easy for us because we are used to select one quality working idea at an early stage and then create the perfect product. But design thinking is the total other way. A lot of ideas and then select the perfect idea with the customer feedback at the later stage. And which part can you also use to generate or create new ideas? So when you have a design challenge, for example, how to create the process of selling a shirt in a total new way, or how can we make universities very new? Another challenge. It's often useful to act like other persons or to act like other companies. For example, how would Google solve that problem? Or how would Bill Gates solve that problem? How do we solve that problem in 100 years? And my favorite is, how would Donald Trump solve that problem? And that's why you can think with the eyes of other persons and open your mind for totally new ideas. So when you would like to use design thinking to create new ideas, it's very important to use the mindset, the special mindset, and a special working approach where you make connections to the team members, where you make connections to the other ideas, where you are able to deal with crazy ideas, where you are able to visualize ideas, where we use micro timing, because we don't have a lot of time to always create the perfect idea. It's more quantity than quality. And it's very important to make a special mood in the group so that you can build on the ideas of each others, and therefore avoiding judgment. So that was a very, very short overview of a design thinking approach to create business ideas. So as I already said, we make design thinking workshops over 2 days. You can go all along the process of design thinking, from the talking to the customer point of view, to the ideation, to prototype, to test, all the way 2 days. And that's why I can only give you a short overview of design thinking. If you are interested in that that process of design thinking, just check out our homepage. Maybe we can offer design thinking workshops also to you. Okay, so let's move on to the second question of today's lecture. How can we evaluate business ideas? And here I worked out 4 criteria how we can evaluate business ideas. So the first criteria how we can evaluate that kind of ideas is the market criteria. We need to think about, is there a customer need? Okay, so my internet connection was not that good. So I share my screen again. Just 1 second, please. Okay, so can you hear me again? Everything's fine?
Yes, now we can hear you, but every now and then it stops for a while and then comes back. So until now, it was not much of a problem, but it keeps coming. So
okay,
maybe you could switch off your camera, and this will help. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So let's move on. We talk about the question, the second question of today's lecture. How can we evaluate business ideas? So when we look at that questions, I worked out 4 different criteria how we can evaluate business ideas. The first criteria is the market criteria. Here we have to ask the founders, or ask ourselves as a founder, is there really a customer need? Just think about the value proposition. Does the customer really need that product? Is there really a market where we can buy or sell our products? What does this market look like? Is that market large enough to make a turnover in the long term? And that is a very, very important question. Then we often have the economic criteria where we look at the profit, the return of investment, or the break-even point. The break-even point is the point where your turnover gets higher than your costs. And we say with the focus on tech startups, it's okay when you have the break-even point at the 3rd or 4th business year. That's totally okay. When we move on, we have to look at the competition for business idea. For example, we can compare the cost structures of our own startup with the competitors. We can ask ourselves, are the necessary resources available? The suppliers, the distribution, the resources, are they available? And then we have personal criteria. That is a very important point. Then on my opinion, it's better to invest at a perfect team with a not so good business idea than in the other way. Because the team is, for me, the most important or the most important part of evaluating a startup. So in that area, we need to look, is the idea suitable to the competencies and skills of the founders? Or are there more knowledge, more competencies are needed to create all the structures, the processes of the business idea. So let's look at the business ideas in a more detailed way. When we look at the feasibility of business ideas, we need to look what skills are really needed to bring the idea to reality. Are the founders able to bring the idea into reality? What other resources are needed? What skills and resources do you already have on the team? Which ones could you produce? What are the critical skills and resources? When, for example, when you look at your competitors, and do you have skills and resources that your competitors don't have and have a difficulty producing? That are the most important questions we use to evaluate the feasibility of a business idea. When we move on to the market, as we already talked about, we have to ask ourselves or the founders what customers are need to meet. How is the need currently being met? How many customers have the need? What does it currently cost customers to meet the need? What additional benefits does our product bring? What would the customer be willing to pay for? How does the demand develop? What does the development depended on? And can you maintain your competitive advantage in this development? That are the most important questions we have to ask to evaluate the market criteria of a business idea. And in the last step, we have the economic criteria, where we can look at the products and the prices of the products, at which prices where do the founders offers their products or their services. Can a profit be made in the long term? That is very important, not only in the short term, but also in the long term. Can I maintain my desired standing of living? It's more a personal question of the founders. When will a profit be made? It belongs to the break-even point. And how many potential customers are there? How often do they come back? Will they only buy the product one time or maybe a second time? Is there a loop in the customer relation? And when we sum up how we can evaluate business ideas, we often see 4 elements of a high potential business idea. First of all, we need a clear value proposition. In the second step, we need a growing market. It's very important. In the third step, we need a level of innovation, so that we have something new that is new on the market and maybe solves the problem of the customer in a different way. And in the fourth part, we need to have a feasibility and also a profitability. That are for us the 4 main components of a high potential business idea. So to sum up today's lecture, we get to know the mindset of creating new business ideas. We get to know design thinking as one method to create business ideas, and we get to know a lot of different criteria to evaluate business ideas. And to sum up, I can give you 3 very important issues for the whole process of creating ideas. First of all, it's very, very, very important, always keep the problems and the needs of your potential customers in mind. And the second point is, very clear, very near to the first step. Keep in touch with your customer from day 1 on. And the third part is think big, start small. And now I am at the end of today's lecture. Thank you very much for your attention, and I am open for your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Uhlmann. It was a very interesting presentation. And in the beginning, I told you that we wanted to make this session a little bit interactive. And it was more interactive than we thought. So now it is time for the quiz. It will appear on your screen, and you have 1 minute to answer it. There are 2 single questions. Thank you for your participation. So, as we all can see, the first question, what are the steps of design thinking? The right answer was...
Sorry, we don't see anything.
We see, I can see.
I'm sorry for that. Maybe some of you could not see the quiz at all.
It's a pop-up. You may be able to see it somewhere else on your screen.
If you have an updated version of Zoom, maybe you are not able to see a pop-up.
You need to click on the bottom of the page.
So, yes, this was an attempt to make this session more interactive. I'm sorry for those who couldn't find the way to answer the quiz, or that don't have the update version of Zoom. This is not. This was not an obligatory quiz, and it was anonymous in any way. So, in the first question, the correct answer was the second one: understand, observe, point of view, ideate, prototype, and test. And in the second question, which criteria would you use first to evaluate an innovative business idea? Again, the correct answer was market potential, innovation, competences of the team. So thank you for your participation. And now we can spend the rest of our time answering to your questions.
There is a question in the chat. What materials would you recommend to learn? And I think I already had prepared a list of books I would recommend. Maybe that would be part of the can the participants download that list? Is that possible?
We have this list, and it will be uploaded in the EURECA-PRO Moodle, so in the learning management system. Yes.
Sorry. To name out only two books I would like to recommend. We have the Running Lean from Ash Maurer, which is very useful to get to know the lean startup approach, which is also available as in English, and there you can get the process of lean startup, or the product development loop. And the second book I would like to recommend is the Design Thinking Playbook. I know that is not really a scientific literature, but for me it was very, very useful to get to know the whole process of creating business ideas. And there you have a lot of examples, a lot of tools which you can use to create business ideas. And for me, it was very, very helpful. Yeah, of course, I can use the chat function.
Thank you, Mr. Uhlmann. I think that during the lecture there was a question in the chat, but I'm not sure I understand. The question was, is it design thinking product DNA? I don't know if you understand if the person who made this question can give us some clarification.
Yeah, that would be perfect, because I've read the comment in the chat, but I'm not quite sure what the concrete question is. Maybe the person could use his or her microphone to ask the question again.
There is someone who raised his hand, Emiliano Mancini. You can take the.
Yes, so I have a different question, so I didn't ask that one. So I have some familiarity with design thinking, and I have worked on several like simpler startups. But now I have a, let's say, a problem that I'm struggling with. So I would like to work on a startup in the health tech domain. So and specifically related to clinical trials. Now the problem is extremely complex, and although I would like to, I want to follow design thinking, and that's the right approach. The problem is talking to the customers, because of course customers in this case are big pharma and they are quite busy to reach. So how would you approach this? Like, should I look for some experts who are not exactly customers, but they understand the domain better? Or should I really invest more energy in reaching the customers?
That is a good question, and the healthcare market is a very complex market, and it is different from country to country. And but the main problem is independent from the branch. How can we reach our customers? How can we talk to our customer? And yeah, there are different ways. There are simple ways. Maybe you can go to trade fairs to meet the customers, but that was not able the last 2 years because of the corona pandemic. And then that's why you need to use more creative ways. First of all, it's very important that the customer or your potential customer understands that you don't want to sell something to him or to her, because at the first step it's very important to get feedback, and that's why you need to point out, okay, you don't be afraid. We don't want to sell anything. We just want to have a feedback, and that is one very important part. And then you need to be creative. Maybe it's easier when you have a background at the university to write an email with your email address from the university and say, okay, we have a scientific project which we are dealing with, and then make the point to your startup. Because on my experience, the hardest part to get to the customer is to get the attention of the customer. And you can get it when the customer understands, okay, here's something, he or she don't want to sell anything, they only want the feedback. That is a potential product which we can work with. And yeah, try it you have to do trial and error. But for us, it often works to be the student or be the scientific worker, and we have a master thesis, or we have a scientific project where we can where we want to get some more informations with, and then we open the door to our customer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Uhlmann. And I see someone else, Mr. Musa Kamara, who wants to take the speech.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Perfect.
Yes, good afternoon, and thanks for the good explanation. And I just want you to clear some doubt. That is, when we started the lecture, we were discussing about business, how to start a business, and you mentioned we discussed about business plan and design. And in a business plan and design, you discuss about how you have to know your customer and how you have to know the problem of the customer and how you have to address the problem of the customer. My question here is, why, if this business you are starting is a kind of new set of business and you do not have a specific customer base to be able to identify everyone's problem and address it, how can you tackle this issue?
Yeah, that is also a good question, because when we look at innovative startups, we often don't know the customer and we don't know what is the problem of the customer, but we have to figure it out. How do we make it? First of all, we need to define different approaches. It's our own approach or our own points we can write down, and then we need to figure out who could be the customer. How do we do that? We think about, okay, which persons or companies maybe have a value from our idea. And then we think, okay, which companies or persons of that list we created could we reach easily? Because for us, it's important to reach the customer easily and then talk to the customer to get the customer feedback, and then move on with the loop in the product development. And that is, I guess, for me, the most important goal. You should always start with the customer you can easily reach, and then move on to the customer with which you can earn, or with which you can make the highest turnover. But the customer you easily reach is often not the customer with which you can make the highest turnover. And that's why you need to start and move step by step to the customer with which you can make the higher turnover.
Okay, that's good. Does that mean that you need to put into place some level of flexibility in your plan, in such that as you meet the customer, you adapt your business plan based on their requirement? Is that what you are saying?
Yeah, actually, yes. Because the business plan, don't get me wrong, the business plan is a very important part of creating a startup or creating a company. But writing down the business plan takes a lot of time, about 1 to 3 months, on my opinion, and we have a very high dynamic on the market. And when I write down the business plan and it takes 2 months, the market moves on, and maybe the customer could be a total different. Maybe there is a competitor who enters the market at the time I write the business plan, and my idea isn't innovative enough after the 2 months because I was too slow. And that's why, on my opinion, it is on an early stage very important to focus on the problem solution fit. And when you have a working problem solution fit and you know your customer and you know the problems of the customer and you have a solution, that is the focus. And then in the later step, you can write down your business plan for the investor. And on my opinion or my experience is that a complete business plan is often not really needed anymore for investors, because when you have a working pitch deck, which includes all the necessary information that are usually also in the business plan, when that pitch deck is good enough, it works, and it includes all the information, that's enough to get an investment.
I think that's clear. Thank you.
Now, is there someone else that would like to pose a question? I see there are some questions in the chat, but I believe they are directing from Harry Paterakis to Emiliano Mancini and backwards, so they are not for us. But is it someone else that would like to say something or pose a question? If not, I could go on with closing this session. Mr. Uhlmann, thanks again for this very interesting and concise lecture. I would like to inform all the students that because the Catholic and Orthodox Easter is in the following weeks, our next meeting will be on the 27th of April at 1 in the afternoon, Central European Summer Time. And our next lecturer is Associate Professor in the School of Chemical and Environmental Engineering of the Technical University of Crete. His name is Professor Rozakis, and he is invited to deliver a lecture concerning mission, organizational structure, and strategy of a company. We are looking forward to learn more on that subject on the 27th of April, so in 3 weeks from now. Thank you again for your participation and have a nice rest of the day.